Forget what you've been taught about being smart. Most people confuse intelligence with noise. They collect facts, memorize quotes, talk fast, and throw opinions around like confetti, calling it confidence. They think that being seen as intelligent means being the loudest person in the room, having an answer for everything, and putting their knowledge on display for a round of applause. But that's a profound misunderstanding. That's performance, not power. Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance-era political philosopher and diplomat who wrote his playbook during the brutal power struggles of the late 15th and early 16th centuries, measured intelligence differently. He didn't measure it by what you know. He measured it by what you could control. Control over yourself when provoked. Control over situations when everyone else is confused. Control over outcomes when the room gets emotional, impulsive, and blind. While most people are busy reacting to life, a select few are shaping it. They have a different kind of intelligence, a strategic, silent intelligence that's often misunderstood and even feared. It doesn't beg for attention, doesn't need validation. It operates quietly, beneath the surface of social interactions, giving its wielder a silent advantage in any room. Now let's be clear. Psychology frames these traits within the dark triad for a reason. They're defined by manipulativeness, a lack of empathy, and a cynical focus on self-interest. This isn't about being evil, but it's also not about being good. This is an analysis of effectiveness. We're exploring the 7 Machiavellian signs of a potent, strategic intelligence, understanding that these principles are not morally neutral, but they are incredibly powerful. If you recognize yourself in these signs, you'll understand what it truly means. Your intelligence isn't loud, it's precise. It doesn't chase approval, it commands respect through its results. These are the signs that you are not just playing the game, you are designing it. Sign 1. Masterful emotional detachment. The first and most foundational sign of Machiavellian intelligence is what looks like emotional mastery, but is actually something more complex. Masterful emotional detachment. When chaos erupts, the average person is flooded with emotion. Fear, anger, anxiety. These feelings become a storm that clouds their judgment and forces impulsive, self-sabotaging reactions. The person who screams back when insulted, panics in a crisis, or makes desperate moves out of fear has already lost. They've handed over control to their environment and to the people provoking them. The strategically intelligent individual operates on a different plane. It's not that they don't feel emotion, they've just cultivated an internal distance from it. Research clarifies that people high in Machiavellian traits often show lower emotional investment. They aren't in tune with their feelings in the way modern self-help gurus suggest. Instead, they treat their own emotions as data points, signals to be observed, not storms to be lost in. This detachment is a formidable weapon. When you're insulted, you don't feel the sting of ego. You see the opponent's attempt to destabilize you. You can then choose to ignore it, redirect it, or use it against them with cold precision. When a deal falls through, you don't feel the weight of disappointment. You analyze the failure, extract the lesson, and recalibrate your strategy. This is why those with these traits are often better at delaying gratification and strategic thinking. Think of a master chess player. They don't get angry at their opponent's moves. They don't get scared when their queen is threatened. They simply observe the new reality on the board and calculate their next optimal move. Their emotional state is irrelevant to the strategy. The game is purely analytical. This is the essence of masterful emotional detachment. It's the ability to stay calm under pressure and think clearly when others are losing their minds. Where others see a crisis, you see a reorganization of leverage. Where others feel panic, you feel a surge of clarity. This is often mistaken for being cold or unfeeling. In reality, it's the ultimate form of mental discipline. It's recognizing that emotional reactions are a liability in the pursuit of power. People who are slaves to their emotions are predictable. Their buttons can be pushed, their fears can be exploited, and their anger can be used to lead them straight into a trap. The person detached from their emotional responses is unreadable, unpredictable, and therefore uncontrollable. They don't strike in rage. They act when the timing is perfect. This ability to remain cool is the bedrock upon which all other strategies are built. Sign 2. The weaponization of strategic silence. In a world drowning in noise, the second sign of Machiavellian intelligence is the deliberate and tactical use of silence. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it with chatter, opinions, and justifications, believing that speaking is a sign of confidence and knowledge. To the strategically intelligent mind, this is a fatal error. They understand a fundamental truth. The person who is talking is giving away information. The person who is silent is receiving it. Strategic silence isn't passive. It's an active, offensive tool. It's a vacuum that forces others to reveal themselves. When you ask a direct question and then remain completely silent, the other person's discomfort compels them to talk. They'll elaborate. They'll justify. They'll offer details they never intended to share. They expose their weaknesses, their desires, and their true intentions, all because they are so desperate to fill the void that they hand you the keys to their psyche. Think of an interrogation. The most effective interrogators don't yell. They create an unnerving quiet. The silence becomes so psychologically heavy that the subject feels an overwhelming need to break it, often by confessing. The same principle applies in a boardroom or a negotiation. When you refuse to speak, you force the other party to confront their own position, and often, its weaknesses. On top of that, strategic silence projects power. A person who doesn't feel the need to immediately defend themselves when accused appears confident. A leader who listens without interruption before speaking appears thoughtful and authoritative. Your lack of reaction can be deeply unsettling to an opponent, making them second-guess their own strategy. They expected a fight, an argument, a defense. You give them nothing, and their aggression is left hanging in the air, impotent and awkward. Machiavelli understood that words are currency. Spending them freely makes you poor. Every word you speak can give away what you want, what you fear, and what you are about to do next. The strategically intelligent person conserves this currency. They don't offer opinions unless it serves a purpose. They don't share personal feelings because that creates vulnerabilities. Their secretiveness isn't an accident. It's a tactic. This is the opposite of the modern obsession with authenticity and sharing. The Machiavellian mind sees that for the strategic theater, it often is, recognizing that in the game of power, information is leverage. Giving it away for free isn't honesty. It's a tactical blunder. People will always reveal who they are when they feel safe enough to speak without resistance. Your silence is their stage. Let them perform. As they do, you aren't just listening. You're gathering intelligence, mapping their internal world, and identifying the precise point where you can apply pressure. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Sign 3. Communication as a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. The third sign of Machiavellian intelligence is a radical approach to communication. They speak in decisions, not in paragraphs. Their words are used with surgical precision, like a scalpel meant to make a single, decisive cut. Most people communicate with a sledgehammer. They use brute force, trying to overwhelm others with the volume of their words. They speak in long, rambling monologues, filled with justifications and unnecessary details, believing the more they explain, the more persuasive they'll be. The result? Their message gets diluted, their authority weakens, and they sound like they're trying to convince themselves as much as anyone else. They are asking for agreement. The strategically intelligent individual does the opposite. They know that true power lies in economy of language. They don't try to win arguments, they aim to end them. This shows up in 3 distinct ways. First, they ask one clean question that forces clarity. Instead of debating an employee's poor performance with a long list of grievances, they might ask, "Is this the standard of work you want to be known for?" That single question cuts through all the excuses and forces the person to confront their own standards. It shifts the burden of justification onto them. Second, they drop one calm statement that resets the room. In a chaotic meeting where everyone is talking over each other, they won't shout louder. They'll wait for a fractional pause and say, calmly and quietly, "This isn't productive. What is the one decision we need to make right now?" The sudden shift in tone and the focus on a single goal immediately silences the noise. Their calmness becomes the new center of gravity. Third, they speak in declarations that change outcomes. They don't say, "I think maybe we should consider going in this direction. What do you all think?" They say, "We are going in this direction." This isn't arrogance, it's the projection of certainty. In a world of uncertainty, people are drawn to those who appear to have a clear vision. By speaking in decisions, you signal that the debate is over. You aren't inviting a discussion. You are announcing the future. This communication style is effective because it bypasses the emotional, ego-driven parts of the brain engaged during an argument. It doesn't give people anything to push against. Arguing with a long-winded speech is easy. There are dozens of points to attack. Arguing with a single, clear, and calm statement is incredibly difficult. It leaves the other person with only 2 choices: accept the new frame or look foolish, trying to reignite a debate that has already ended. This isn't about being rude. It's about understanding that influence isn't about winning a war of words. It's about controlling the frame of the conversation. The person who uses the fewest words often has the most control. While others are lost in the complexity of their own paragraphs, the Machiavellian intelligence cuts to the core, makes the incision, and moves on. Sign 4. The obsession with mechanisms over motives. The 4th sign of Machiavellian intelligence is a profound cognitive habit. They are obsessed with understanding the mechanisms of power, not the stated motives of people. The average person analyzes the world through personality and intention. They ask, is this person good or bad? Are their intentions pure? Do they like me? They listen to what people say and judge actions based on perceived morality. This is a naive way to view the world because it focuses on the packaging, not the engine. The strategically intelligent individual operates on a deeper level. They aren't concerned with whether someone is good. They're concerned with what drives them. They don't take declared motives at face value because they know most people aren't even honest with themselves about why they do things. Someone might say, "I'm just trying to help," when the underlying mechanism is a desire for control. They might say, "I'm just being honest," when the mechanism is jealousy. The Machiavellian mind bypasses this and looks directly at the raw mechanics of human behavior, incentives, fears, and desires. They ask different questions. What does this person protect at all costs? This reveals their true values. What do they fear losing? This reveals their point of leverage. What do they secretly chase? This reveals their deepest ambition. This isn't cynical overthinking. It's intelligence applied to reality. While others are swayed by a charismatic speech, they are mapping the flow of power in the room. Who defers to whom? Who holds the unspoken authority? who is playing a long game. This aligns with what research tells us. While Machiavellianism isn't linked to general IQ, some studies find a connection to higher fluid intelligence, the ability for adaptive reasoning and abstract problem solving. It's a knack for discerning patterns in complex social systems. However, this skill is not used for empathy. Research suggests that while their ability to feel what others feel may be low, their cognitive ability to understand another person's perspective for the purpose of manipulation can be highly developed. Their social acuity is not for connection. It is a specialized tool for calculation. This makes them incredibly difficult to deceive. You cannot fool them with flattery because they see the mechanism of ingratiation. You cannot pressure them with a false sense of urgency because they analyze the incentive behind the deadline. You cannot sway them with moral arguments because they see morality itself as a tool people use to advance their interests. They are like engineers of human interaction. While everyone else is admiring the beautiful facade of the building, they are in the basement, studying the foundation, the plumbing, and the electrical wiring. They know that true control comes from understanding how the entire structure actually works. Sign 5. Radical pragmatism and detachment from beliefs. The fifth sign is a trait often mistaken for intellectual humility, but is in fact a much colder, more strategic quality. Radical pragmatism. This is the willingness to abandon any belief, strategy, or identity the moment it stops being effective. Most people are slaves to their own ego. They cling to beliefs because they've publicly defended them. They stick to a losing strategy because they've invested too much time and energy to admit it was wrong. Their identity is wrapped up in being right, and to change an opinion feels like a personal failure. The strategically intelligent individual has a different relationship with truth. They aren't loyal to beliefs, they are loyal to outcomes. Their primary goal is not to be right, but to win. This creates a state of radical mental adaptability. If a strategy is failing, they drop it without drama. If new evidence contradicts a long-held view, they update their perspective immediately. They understand that clinging to a failing idea out of pride is a form of self-sabotage. This is not the same as intellectual humility, which is rooted in a love for truth. The pragmatism of a Machiavellian mind is immoral and utilitarian. They will abandon a truth, not because a better one was found, but because it is no longer a useful tool. Their adaptability isn't humble, it's opportunistic. Research backs this up, correlating Machiavellianism with cynicism, a general distrust of others, and an indifference to conventional morality. They aren't seeking enlightenment, they're seeking an edge. Consider a general in a war. A loyal general might stick to a battle plan he devised, even as his troops are being decimated, because his ego is tied to the plan. A pragmatic general, seeing the plan fail, will immediately pivot. He might sacrifice a legion or adopt a tactic he previously scorned. His loyalty is not to the plan, but to victory. This trait makes them formidable long-term players. While competitors become rigid and trapped by their own ideologies, they remain fluid. They can feign allegiance to any group or adopt any public persona if it serves their goals. As Machiavelli himself advised, a leader must appear compassionate and honest, but be prepared to be the opposite when necessity dictates. In their worldview, this isn't hypocrisy, it's strategy. They are not afraid to be wrong because they don't attach their ego to being right. They are only interested in what works. This mental flexibility allows them to learn from mistakes faster than others. While a normal person is busy defending their error, the pragmatist has already analyzed it, extracted the data, and moved on. They seem untroubled by the cognitive dissonance that paralyzes others. because their actions are always in service of a more advantageous position. Sign 6. The mastery of long-term agency. The sixth sign is the mastery of long-term agency. This is often simplified as delayed gratification, but it's far more active and strategic. It's the ability to play a long game in a world obsessed with short-term wins. Most people live in a state of reaction, driven by immediate impulses, the desire for comfort, the craving for approval, the fear of missing out. They chase quick dopamine hits, the social media like, the small promotion, the fleeting moment of recognition. They are playing checkers, making one move at a time. The strategically intelligent individual is playing chess. They see the entire board, think 10 moves ahead, and are willing to sacrifice pieces now to secure checkmate later. This isn't just passive resistance to temptation. It is the active, deliberate construction of future leverage. While both Machiavellianism and psychopathy are dark triad traits, the Machiavellian mind is particularly noted for channeling its efforts toward future-oriented goals. They study the battlefield while their rivals are celebrating a small victory. They build their empire in silence, while others are loudly announcing their ambitions. They accumulate resources, knowledge, and alliances, understanding that power is a marathon, not a sprint. Think of the difference between building a sandcastle and building a fortress. The sandcastle provides immediate satisfaction, but is washed away by the first high tide. The fortress takes years to build. It requires digging deep foundations and laboring in obscurity. It offers no immediate glory, but once it is complete, it is unassailable. The Machiavellian mind is always building the fortress. This shows up in their career, their relationships, and their skills. They'll take a less glamorous job that offers more valuable connections. They'll spend years mastering a difficult skill that will give them an undeniable edge later on. They patiently cultivate a reputation for reliability, knowing it will pay dividends when they need to call in favors. They don't need to prove anything, because their validation comes from the successful execution of their long-term plan, not the fleeting approval of the crowd. This ability to operate on a different time horizon gives them an almost insurmountable advantage. They are not distracted by the daily dramas that consume others' energy. They absorb short-term losses without losing focus, seeing them as calculated costs in a much larger campaign. While everyone else is fighting for scraps at the table, the master of long-term agency is quietly working to own the entire restaurant. Sign 7. The curation of a strategic circle. The seventh and final sign is the conscious and calculated curation of their social environment. A person with this intelligence does not have relationships by accident. Every connection is a reflection of a strategic choice. The average person accumulates relationships passively. They befriend coworkers out of proximity and maintain old friendships out of obligation. Their social circle is a random assortment of people who have drifted into their orbit. They see relationships through a lens of comfort and emotion. The strategically intelligent individual sees relationships as a power grid. Every person is either a source of energy or a drain. They are architects of their social world, and they build with purpose. This mindset leads them to assess people based on 3 primary criteria: utility, loyalty, and influence. First, utility. Does this person possess knowledge, skills, or resources that are valuable? Can they open doors? They are not just making friends, they are acquiring assets. Second, loyalty. Can this person be trusted when the stakes are high? This worldview operates on the principle of mutual self-interest. They cultivate loyalty not through sentiment, but by making themselves so valuable to others that betrayal would be an act of self-harm. Third, influence. Does this person elevate your status by association? The Machiavellian mind understands the power of social proof. Being seen with the right people is a form of borrowed power. They will strategically seek proximity to high-status individuals to absorb their influence and integrate into their networks. Conversely, they are surgical in cutting ties. They will distance themselves from anyone who is an emotional drain or a weak link. They do this without much guilt, because in their view, it's a necessary act of strategic maintenance. This cynical worldview is a hallmark of the trait. The belief that everyone is ultimately self-interested leads them to avoid deep emotional attachments that could cloud their judgment. While this may lead to a sense of alienation, it is, in their framework, a necessary sacrifice for control. Their circle is not a support group, it is a council of war. If you saw yourself in these 7 signs, masterful emotional detachment, the weaponization of strategic silence, communication as a scalpel, an obsession with mechanisms, radical pragmatism, mastery of long-term agency, and the curation of a strategic circle, then you understand a fundamental truth about the world. Intelligence isn't a passive quality you display to win applause. It's an active, formidable tool used to shape reality. The world isn't moved by good intentions. It's moved by leverage, timing, and positioning. The loudest voices don't hold the real power. The real power belongs to those who observe, calculate, and act with precision, while others are lost in the noise. This path requires a level of discipline and detachment that most people are unwilling to cultivate. It requires you to stop reacting to the game of life and start designing it. It means choosing effectiveness over ego, outcomes over intentions, and control over comfort. You don't need to announce your shift in perspective. In fact, the most potent transformations are invisible. Let people underestimate your silence. Let them misread your restraint as weakness. While they are busy performing, you will be building. From this moment forward, your moves become quieter, but they carry more weight. Your words become fewer, but they land with greater impact. You stop being a piece on the chessboard and start becoming the hand that moves the pieces. This is the essence of Machiavellian intelligence. It is not about being dark. It is about refusing to be blind. If these ideas resonated with you, and you want to continue exploring the psychology of power and strategy, then like this video and subscribe to the channel. And now, a question for the comments. Which of these 7 signs do you see as the most powerful in today's world, and why? Share your thoughts below. The most insightful comments will reveal the most strategic minds. Move with control,